The Yahweh stories begin with Genesis 2:4. This is the account of the heavens and the earth, wind. So there's two real creation stories at the beginning. The newer one, which is the first one, and the older one, which is the second one. And the older one begins in chapter 2, and that's the story that we are getting into now. Adam and Eve are in that, Cain and Abel, Noah at the Tower of Babel, in the Yahweh strand, Exodus, Numbers along, and there's some of the priestly version in there too, as well as the 10 Commandments. Well, there's some lovely representations of paradise. This is Garden of Earthly Delights. What's his name? Say that. Bosch, yes, Hieronymus Bosch. Yes, a crazy. I mean, how he didn't get burnt at the stake is absolutely beyond me. I mean, you know, some of you know about Salvador Dali. I suppose most of you do. I mean, Dali's a piker compared to Hieronymus Bosch. Man, you could spend, because there's 3 pieces of this particular painting. You could spend a very bizarre and surreal month looking at that painting. I don't know what it was with Bosch, but he was some sort of creature that only popped up once, and probably for the best. And so there's been very many representations of paradise. I mean, God only knows what that is. It's like, I could probably guess, but I won't. And then look, I mean, that's the lion lying down with the lamb, right? So that's this idea that's maybe projected back in time, that there was a time, or maybe will be a time, when the horrors of life are no longer necessary for life itself to exist, right? And the horrors of life are, of course, that everything eats everything else, and that everything dies, and that everything's born, and that the whole bloody place is a charnel house, and it's a catastrophe from beginning to end. And this is the vision of it being other than that. And you know, there's a strong idea. This was also implicit in the alchemical ideas, and I think it's also implicit in the scientific revolution, that human beings can interact with reality in such a way so that the tragic and evil elements of it can be mitigated, and so that we can move somewhat closer to a state that might be characterized, well, that's obviously imagistic, but it might be characterized by something like that, where we have the benefits of actual existence without all of the catastrophe that seems to go along with it. And Carl Jung, when he wrote about the emergence of alchemy, or the emergence of science from alchemy, he thought of science as being motivated by a dream, because for Jung, the dream was the manifestation of the instincts. It was the boundary between the instincts and thinking. He said, well, science is nested inside a dream. And the dream is that if we investigated the structures of material reality with sufficient attention and truth, that we could then learn enough about material reality to alleviate suffering, right? To produce the philosopher's stone, to make everybody wealthy, to make everybody healthy, to make everyone live as long as they wanted to live, or perhaps forever. That's the goal, to alleviate the catastrophe of existence. And that idea, the idea that mysteries, the solution to the mysteries of life that might enable us to develop such a substance, or let's say a multitude of substances, provided the motive force for the development of science. And Jung traced the development of that motive force really over 1,000 years. And if you're interested in reading his books on alchemy, which are extraordinarily difficult, and that's really saying something about Jung, because all of his books are difficult, and then the books on alchemy, they kind of take a quantum leap. That's actually a very small leap, so I shouldn't say that. They take a massive leap into a whole different dimension of complexity, but that's what he was trying to get at. He went back into the alchemical texts and interpreted them as if they were the dream on which science was founded. And Newton was an alchemist, by the way. I mean, Jung's hypotheses are certainly well supported by the historical facts. Science did emerge out of alchemy. The question is, what were the alchemists up to? And they were trying to produce the philosopher's stone, and that was the universal medicament for mankind's pathology. Jung felt that what had happened was that, you know, Christianity had promised that, the cessation of suffering, promised it for 1,000 years, and yet suffering went on unabated. And at the same time, Christianity had attempted to really put emphasis on spiritual development, let's say, at the expense of material development, right? Thinking of material development as something akin to a sin, trying to get a control of impulsivity and all the things that went along with a two-embodied existence. There was a reason for it, but that by about 1000 AD, the European mind, somewhat educated by that point, somewhat able to concentrate on a single point, perhaps because of a very long history of intense religious training, turned its dream to the unexplored material world and thought, well, you know, the spiritual redemption that we've been seeking didn't appear to produce the result that was promised or intended, and so maybe there's another place that we should look, and that was in the damned material world, right? Which was supposed to be, at least according to some elements of classic thinking, nothing but the creation of the devil. So, but the point I'm making is that, you know, it's very difficult to underestimate the amount of human motivation that's embedded in the attempt to alleviate suffering, to eradicate disease, to help people live a healthy life, and well, that's the disease, obviously, but to live a long life as well, and to make things as peaceful as possible. I mean, you can be cynical about people, and you can talk about them as motivated by power and being corrupt and all of those things, and all of those things are true, but you shouldn't throw away the baby with the bathwater, because we have been striving for a very long time to set things right, and we've done actually not too bad a job of it for half-starving, crazy, insect-ridden chimpanzees with lifespans of 50 to 70 years. So, you know, we could deserve a bit of sympathy for our position as far as I'm concerned.